everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 show. It's Tuesday. That means we are coming at you live on X as well as YouTube. Coming at you from the palatial air-conditioned Football 360 studios, which is a good thing. Although the weather's just kind of a little bit crazy. From extreme heat. It's funny because I was at 7 on 7 on Saturday, and it was like extreme heat, and then there was like I don't know, like 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So it was whipping you. I'm JP Rock. He is Matt Bierman. Beautiful graphics brought to you by Joe Pro, the ultimate producer there, doing the stuff. There's our socials. There's our websites. There's our logo. It's beautiful, man, isn't it?
Looks awesome. Looks great, as you would expect.
Well, look at that. Now you're expected to do things, Joe. Now Matt has expectations.
Yeah, well,
you never want to do that. You always want to hold back.
Great.
You never want to hold. You always want to hold back because then people start expecting stuff. So Matt, what's going on, man?
Not too much. Just we're in the throes of it. Every week you say something in the summer, and it's busy. I mean,
it's great.
At our facility, we have so much going on, and then there's the kids that we're training or they're doing stuff. So it's good catching up with those guys throughout the week and hearing what they're up to. And then getting to watch some film with them, getting to then get back to the drawing board, and then just helping them through the process.
A lot of cool stuff going on. Although today, because it was the extreme heat warnings, that a lot of places either were canceling stuff, or like there were some scrimmages and joint practices, whatnot, were canceled, or they had to move it like really early, like 6-7 a.m. if they were going to do anything. Because it, got to be so hot. I think the heat index got up to what, like 105, 110, something.
It was 103 on the thermometer, I think. So
yeah, and then
hot day.
And then it just rained like about a half hour ago, and it's cooled things off a little bit. So now it's like just a steamy, hot mess in a fishbowl.
Yes,
kind of a feel. And of course, there's a little bit of rain on the road, so people are having accidents and all kinds of good stuff like that. So take it easy out there. If you're listening, hopefully you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, and not trying to watch us on your phone as you're driving down the road. Although I see that stuff happen all the time.
Yeah, I see lots of people watching or tweeting or texting or whatever while they're driving.
Yeah, just neglectful driving. But you can also catch everything Football 360 or football360show.com. Old episodes, you can catch them on YouTube as well, but football360show.com is everything. And I imagine that's going to just keep ramping up with more and more stuff, especially as football season starts. And like I said, I love this time of year. Football season's really started. Been to contact camps, joint practices, padded practices, and then the big 7-on-7 tournament at Fort Zumwalt East. Congratulations to SLU, who won it all. I think it's called the Lions. Is that the Lions Classic, I think?
Yeah, a lot of teams. What was it, 25, 30 teams?
Yeah, it was 25, 30 teams. A lot of good talent out there. A lot of guys were missing from some teams, though, because vacations, everybody's on camp. Some guys are on visits. Some guys are playing other sports, all stuff we've talked about.
Yep.
A lot of people coming up and saying how much they enjoy the show. So wanted me to pass that along to you. How much?
Yeah,
how much?
I hear it a lot too. It's interesting. There's a lot of people listening and tuning in to what we're saying about the whole process of being recruited, being a high school player,
right?
Rising from the junior ranks up to the high school ranks, and then obviously playing collegiately and beyond.
And a lot of parents thanking us for giving them information that they had no idea about. And I got a lot of that. It's like we had no idea what's going on. And so we listen every week now because we're picking up stuff to be able to be used. And so,
I think that's part of the process, though, because there's so many people that are fans of the game of football.
Right.
But, and then you think you kind of know the process. And there are some people who've had kids that go through other sports, other types of recruiting. And it's very different. Recruiting from football is wholly different than being recruited for softball, baseball, soccer. Just how you announce your commitment or how you announce your offers, all those things. Each sport is different with kind of how the norms of how it goes. And it's really interesting. So football definitely has its own, tenor and pace to recruiting. It has a different focus than some of the other sports, just how it's it's delivered, and
Right.
the timelines are different. The signing days are different. Whereas a lot of the other sports do it on the same day. Football kind of has its own days because it's obviously a big national story, and it leads into kind of one of the things we talked about a few weeks ago. I think a lot of people, and it's going to be a kind of a tough subject at some point because there's still a lot of things getting worked out, but there's some major changes coming in college football. I mean, there's major changes coming, and beyond college football, major changes coming to college athletics is what would be my thought process. I know we've talked about it for some time, but it's going to get really rough, I think, here next 2 to 4 or 5 years, just because a lot of things are getting figured out. And if the settlement between the NCAA House versus NCAA class action lawsuit goes through, they're going to be paying 20% of their budget with like a cap of $25 million devoted to paying to the athletes. And the tough thing is like I was talking with someone the other day, if you think about it, that 20% that they never paid the athletes was how they funded all the Olympic sports, right? And so that money's now going to be, divvied out to athletes. And you can already start to hear the argument. Everybody's going to want their seat at the table. But the truth be told, football, drives 70 to 80% of all revenue in college athletics. And basketball, drives the other component. That's the remaining part. And, they're the ones that are going to have the seat at the table. And they're the ones that those athletes are going to get paid more. And, with some of the stipulations, it's almost as if the NCAA, wanted to force some things down, but the court probably is also part of it. And they forced it down their throat. And now there's going to be expansion of scholarships. And so it sounds like, at face value, you're like, oh, that's awesome. Baseball had 11.75 scholarships. Now they have 30. Well, if you think of it in terms of just dollars and cents, it's going to really impact how they deliver and how the schools budget. And you're talking about schools that run like basically zeroed out budgets every year. If they bring in 141 million, they spend 141 million, right? And that's how they've always done it. So now you add this new budget
spend
line,
it or you lose it.
So you add this new budget line, of 20% of the money going to athletes that they've never paid, which is why they got themselves in this situation to begin with. If they would have just shared, they probably would have been a whole lot better off. But now, in my opinion, the NCAA will be gone in 5 years.
Oh, without a doubt.
They will exist to support the non-revenue sports.
Right,
exactly.
What's
going to happen.
Yeah. And then the rest of it's just going to be like corporately owned, professional sports. I mean, it's already semi-pro, as we've said, and it's just moving that way. And the more people you talk to, you really hear how it's really, really going. And it's just changed so much. And, I mean, you see on a daily basis, just, this brand and that brand and all these different things popping up. And it's like, wow, and just think about it. I mean, just 5-10 years ago, that was unheard of, just the difference that's going on.
Absolutely. And the problem is that there's so much money involved, and they have not managed it all that well from the outset. And so now, you take, a school like Mizzou. We'll just use them as an example because they're closest. And they're now told, hey, you have to provide 30 scholarships for baseball, 30 scholarships for softball. Track and field used to have X number of scholarships. Now you're going to the 10X then, or whatever it will be to cover, to have a full team. That money has to come from somewhere. They don't, there's no, write off like where they're just writing out scholarships. They have to actually, unless they change the rule, the NCAA requires that is a fully funded scholarship. So there's, Tiger Scholarship Fund that pays for some of those student athletes to go to Mizzou, right? They raise funds, they get donations through, boosters and people like that, so they can help defray the costs of kids going to their school, which has always been a challenge, I think, over the years. And now you go from 11 to 30, or you go from 300 to $800 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And every athlete then has to be decided, like, are they going to have to pay them?
I mean, that's unsustainable.
It's unsustainable. So
Yeah.
what's going to happen, in my humble opinion, is we're going to see the Power Four break away. They're going to start their own professional football league, which we talked about, and people laughed earlier in the
Mhm.
fall.
Yeah.
They're going to break away. It'll be a professional football union, if you will, derived by each collegiate, locale,
Right.
and the schools will be able to partake in it, make their money, and then unfortunately, what that's going to do is it's going to carve itself out. Right. Obviously, there's Title IX implications, things like that. But I think what's going to happen is when they carve it out and they remain and leave the other sports as amateur, and then they make football professional and basketball professional, it's going to allow them to get away from some of the Title IX implications that they've fought in the past. So when it comes to Title IX from a perspective of equity in number of scholarships. So, and I think football, was the greatest thing for women's sports because you have 85 scholarships on a Division I football team. Well, those 85 scholarships, there's no female counterpart sport with football, right? So the tough thing is once you start, divvying out money, the female athletes definitely won in that equation. That's why Mizzou has women's soccer. They don't have men's soccer, right? There's plenty of sports that they'll have where they can have, a female sport, but no male counterpart sport. Soccer is a male and female sport. So is basketball. So is baseball and softball. So is track and field. So is swimming. So is cross country. All those things, tennis, golf, all those sports have the male and female sports. Wrestling is one of the only ones that does not, collegiately at Division I level have a Division I women's wrestling that I'm aware of. Maybe they do. But this whole thing's going to work its way down. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of people scrambling. And the tough thing is that the smaller schools are going to be the ones that get squeezed and screwed. In my opinion, the FBS schools may be the ones that take the hardest hit. Just reading what I've been reading and just having conversations, I think the FCS schools are going to be hurting from this because, they're pushing back right now on the NCAA settlement, saying that they did not have a seat at the table, but they're having to pay like 60% of the fines. And, oh, by the way, they do know that what's going to happen is the rug's going to get pulled and the big boys are going to leave and take all their money with them. And it's when we talk about revenue, derived for college athletics, it's, make no mistake, it's the big conferences, the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, right? Those guys, and then the old Pac-12. So those are the guys bringing in the big money. Obviously, the group of five, those guys bring in money, but it's not to the level that the other ones do. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with those guys. It's just like the American Athletic Conference or Conference USA, Mountain West. Who knows what's going to happen with those? But the revenue is going to be really interesting with how they're able to hold all these other sports and still pay the athletes as they're now required to. I don't see a great outcome for a lot of the other sports. I think it's going to become a bigger business in football. Football is always one of those things we've talked about, like the return on investment. There's no other sport that you can invest time, energy, and money in, from at the collegiate level prior to NIL, and have a greater chance of getting an NCAA Division I or Division I AA or FBS, FCS scholarship, right? Or go to an NAIA school and get a full ride. There's lots of money for kids to play football. And it's one of those sports that doesn't cost much to play in high school, doesn't cost all that much to train, in a year-round perspective or 6 to 8 months out of the year. But the return on the investment, whereas you have kids that play baseball all year, and they were fighting for a 25 to 30% scholarship. They're playing soccer, men's soccer, and they get a 25% scholarship. And then you look at the rosters and you see it's comprised of what? Mostly foreign athletes, not American athletes. So, what are college football teams comprised of? American athletes, right? Very few foreign athletes make it onto those rosters, scholarship-wise.
All right.
So but it will be
No,
the death of walk-ons.
Yeah, it really will, and it's really going to change for the fans. From the fans' perspective, you just want to enjoy college football. You're going to have to learn a lot of stuff and go along with a lot of stuff. And the purists who, you were talking about, some people get upset. I mean, that's great. You have some purists who they just want to win, so they whatever they got to pay or cheat or whatever. Fans, they're cool with doing that. Some people just want to be rah for Old State U, and that, I mean, those days are gone. Everything changes, and everything's going to change. And I mean, on the smaller level, it's going to be probably club sports. And you're going to have the smaller. There's no way they're going to be able to compete. There might be some schools that hang in there because they're going to need to schedule some teams, and so they're going to get big paydays, and so that's going to go towards helping with their budget and helping cover costs and stuff like that. But it's I mean, are you ready? Are you ready for the FedEx Tennessee Volunteers? Right? I mean, that's probably what's gonna happen, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, there's going to be more corporate sponsorship at that level. There's going to be a lot more potential for private equity to come in and start to fund these teams.
And private equity knows with the money that's involved, so they're really going to get involved.
Correct. I think we were talking about a few weeks ago. One of the articles I read, there's $3.3 billion generated last year by the Power of 4/5, and they believe that same model, if run correctly and efficiently by the private sector, could be worth over $30 billion. So those schools start hearing that, and then now, if that is the case, that could be the saving grace for all those other sports, right? So having people come in and run it more efficiently, make more money, make a better operations for the football, the guys that actually make the money. So then that there's extra left over to
just
fund,
trickles down to the other sports.
Right. So, we talked about it a few weeks ago too. They're stopping. Like, people might think we're like kind of being outlandish and talking, a little bit ahead of ourselves, but there's a Division I wrestling program, Iowa State. They were building they had future plans, and they had it set in motion, and they were building the wrestling facility for their Big 12. And they were going to build a wrestling facility for their team, and really nice setup.
Wrestling's
plans, the total deal, and they stopped. They said that in good conscience they could not move forward because there's a possibility that it will not exist as it does today, and it could be a club sport. And so, like, when you start to read that and you start to see things like, athletic directors stepping down and stepping into new positions inside their universities, and you see you're at University of Missouri and you see all the money getting put into that stadium, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to believe and say, okay, they're going to invest in football, but they're going to slow play all the other things. They know what's coming, right? I mean, to some degree, right? With some good certainty with how they're going to calculate, risks with spending money and budgeting, things of that nature. So it's going to be really crazy. And I don't see the end of NIL as, people slowing down, like the private interest money flowing. I know the NCAA would love to stop that, but that cat's out of the bag, and that's not going back. So
no.
So anytime people can get access to athletes and pay them to do things and get close to them, people do it. They do it. I mean, adult men that have money do that a lot. I mean, they do it in other sports too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the Olympic sports are funded by former alumni that did that sport in college, and then they're just a supporter of it, and they've done well in their life, and they give money, but they also have access to the athletes and the coaches, and it makes them feel good, and they're giving back to a good cause.
Yeah, well, you see it trickle down to the high school level now, with what's going on. I know we were talking about the transfers and that whole situation that's going on with that. And believe it or not, at the events that I was going at, that's a pretty hot topic. There's a lot of people talking about transfers. There's a lot of transfers and a lot of stuff going on people being denied, their eligibility and this and that. And man, it is really more difficult than ever, I think, to navigate, because it really wasn't a thing. Just what, 5-6 years ago, maybe. Yeah, it wasn't a thing.
You definitely hear a lot more chatter about it, and people are so territorial about the kids. And and the thing is that one, if someone doesn't want to be a part of your program, why hold them?
That's what I say. Yeah.
Two, if a parent and a family makes a decision for themselves and their child, like who are you or who are we to say that's a bad idea?
Right.
You can certainly give your advice, but to block them, full stop, I just have a real problem with it. And I have a problem with a lot of the rules that Misha has implemented over the years. And unfortunately, and the tough thing is that if it was across the board seemed, black and white, it just is this, and this is what the rule, but there's so many kids I've seen.
A lot of arbitrary decisions.
A lot of arbitrary decisions. Yeah. I mean, there's magic words that are said. Those definitely help the process. And
there's spite. I mean, there's still guys who like, and that's not a lot, right? So it's not. And I was talking to multiple coaches at various camps and events and 7-on-7, and most of them have the mentality that if a kid doesn't want to be here, hey, go be what's best for you and what's best for your family. But there's still a few who, and that's across the state. There's still a few holdouts who just get angry, want to be pissed off about a kid wanting to go for whatever reason. And what's really funny is if the kids, your program's at a certain level and you still want to make that kid stay at your place. I mean, what's your point? Right. What's the point of doing it?
I've seen it too, where that happens, and then the kid gets it taken out on them, right? And for sticking around, it's like, come on, like at some point, yeah, kids do make mistakes. Kids, things happen, and parents can make mistakes, right? I mean, we all can. So, helping, compelling argument to helping kids, and sometimes kids are just in a bad spot,
right,
and they need some new life, and so. It would be great to see some solution. And I think, if Missouri gets ever to the school choice, that will completely just, wash it down the drain, and we won't even hear about that process anymore. So
something's gonna come to a head here, because man, there are just kids, and I make it out. I actually see the kids, and I go to the events and I watch people play and stuff, and I'm like, wait, you're with this team, you're at this school now.
Oh.
You're at that school now, or people tell me, oh no, he's not with us anymore. He's here. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's so I imagine this is all just going to come, to a head as to how it. Somebody's going to sue somebody. There's going to be legal action taken, I'm sure.
And the tough thing is that when somebody I always hate it when you see people willingly accept transfers, but then when someone tries to transfer from their program, they're the one that gets ticked. So you can't have it both ways. So I really would love to see. Some better legislation, if you will, from the state. But again, I'll stand on last week. I'm telling you, there will be a landmark decision in the state. Someone's going to sue over restriction of commerce. And I promise you, it will if it makes it to the federal level, which it probably would, they're going to lose. The state will lose. Misha will lose.
Yeah, with the climate of college football and the trickle. I mean, let's face it, high school football, right, is a feeder program.
Yes,
so we tell kids when they go to camps, when they go to combines, that's a job interview, right? And you have colleges showing up about. So so you're absolutely right that it's going to be interference with commerce.
Talking with one of my pro quarterbacks this past weekend. We got on the discussion and we were talking about, playing early in high school as opposed to waiting and being the right deal.
Yeah.
And he was talking about a kid playing as a freshman or sophomore. And it was interesting. He's got his finger on the pulse. He does the old money sign, because if you're able to play at a younger age and put you put yourself out there and you perform, the odds increase that you're going to be a guy who gets recruited. If the odds increase that you go to a higher level school, this day and age, there's money tied to it. So, I just really, it stinks. I would hate to lose a kid, but unfortunately, I mean, that's the way it goes. Hey, I run a business. If someone comes in and trains with us, I wish they would train with us forever, but people make decisions, sometimes right, sometimes wrong. You advise them on it, but I can't trap them and hold them in. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Or if they don't want to work, so be it. Right. So if a kid is not a good fit in a program, then it is what it is. So
it really is. And I'll tell you what, navigating that and when to leave is something that I see a lot of that really, I feel bad about, because I see too many kids who hang on a place too long.
Yep.
or they hang out at a place and then they want to go to the happening place, right? That's the place to be hip. And there are schools out there where everybody's like, well, if I go to this school, and sometimes they're told if you go to this school, everybody gets an offer, right?
I've yet to find that place. If you think that
right.
exists, you're being lied to.
Right. It's just not the case. And so, and like I said, I'm out and about and I see things and I talk to kids and I see the roster, right? I see the depth chart. And there are kids and it's like, okay, well, hopefully by your senior year, you'll get an opportunity to play.
And you know what? In some regards, that's what's best for the team, and that's probably not what's best for you. It may be that you're not even ready, and you just need to prepare, right? But if it's a kid that's ready to go, I see so many teams that need quarterbacks. And then I see these teams that have 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah,
and it's hard to kind of watch sometimes because it's not even about a college recruiting thing. It's about an experience thing, right?
Right.
It's about you only get 4 years of high school football. Let's play, let's get out there, let's have fun, put it on the field. But but yes, again, there's something to be gained from earning it, learning, taking your licks and going through the process.
You're going to have competition no matter where you
go. Being unrealistic about how fast you can get on the field. If you have to wait to your senior year, you either have to love the school, love the program, or all the above. But that's tough. That's a tough sell.
It is tough because, you don't have the days where people are late bloomers anymore. You never hear that anymore with recruiting because schools don't take late bloomers. Schools will let you go someplace else, right? Schools will let you go to Central Missouri or let you go to Northwest Missouri or Truman State if you're a late bloomer and develop there. It's not even like a JUCO thing anymore. No. You go to those schools because they're mining them. We talked about it. They have whole staffs being developed to mine those schools, to scout those schools, look for those kids. So, if you were waiting to your senior year to play, then that's your only option. And even that, it has become so difficult in recruiting that schools in the past, and a lot of kids are telling me that college coaches at smaller schools are saying, years past, you would have had an offer.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, yeah, years
Thanks
past.
for telling me that.
Years past, your school, the coach who's talking to this kid wouldn't have been able to touch this kid because this kid would have been having Big 12 offers, right?
Yep.
But they can all pass because they hold the cards. They have they have all the clout. They have the offer to give you. And something else, and I know we had a question from a listener wanting us to talk about and warn kids about fake offers.
I got a good one for that.
I'm hearing way too much of this, and I have kids who will DM me and tell me about this stuff. It's happening all across the state.
Yeah, well,
but apparently there are these are adults. It's not other kids, but apparently there.
Well, some kids, yeah, I think it's
some might be kids.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that are talking to me, they're adults, and they're doing this weird stuff, and telling them. But go ahead and tell your story. But
okay, so there's 2 types of fake offers. There's kids who erroneously post that they have offers, which is a dumb move.
Yeah.
Dumb move.
That's done in the hopes of that they're going to.
I've seen kids do it.
Get interest by posting fake offers.
Here's the problem: if you post it, you have an offer from an SEC school.
Not helping yourself.
And then you end up at an NAIA or Division III. You've been found out. You were lying. Okay, but there's plenty of people that do that. But what is the new trend that's popping up? And I think a lot of it has a lot to do with AI and how people can access and write things more professionally or use voices that are much more believable.
Yeah.
There's kids. So for instance, there's a young man. One of our coaches asked me the other day, say, hey, did you hear this young man got an offer from a regional Division II school? And I said, oh, I didn't know. Did he go to their camp? So I started asking questions, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is you and I both know Division II schools do not offer rising juniors very often at all, right? They might be changing the trend, but by and large, a lot of those offers, those D2 guys will do like early in the summer, and then it will go quiet, and then they'll be mid-fall before they start really raking in guys because they got to wait and see what happens.
But it's not unheard of if somebody just blows them away at their camp.
Correct. Yeah, and it can happen.
Yeah.
But the odds are a little lower for the D2s. You just don't see it as much. So just kind of thought, well, that's not good. So the kid sends the coach a copy of what was sent to him as a text message, and apparently emails as well and phone calls.
That's the crazy part.
And it's just disgusting because when someone has that much malice and they're that deep into something to hurt somebody that they know really wants this offer, it's total BS, right? And so I'm just going to call it out. That's all it is, right? And so the young man, gets a message, and it looks like it. I mean, it reads like it's from the offensive coordinator.
Huh.
And it reads as if, like they really like him and they want him to be a part of the program. And it's well written, no grammatical errors. And I would assume ChatGPT wrote it. So one of those things. And the next thing you know, he talks to him, and now put yourself in the parent's shoe. Your kid comes in and says, hey, I talked to this coach. I got an offer. What are you thinking? Well, hey, part of his scholarship, part of his school is going to be paid for. This is a big deal. This has major implications for families, right? So you're excited. You post it. The kid posted. The parents post it, which you should. And come to find out, it was all BS. It was a hoax, right? It was some jerk kid. So on the back end, I had asked one of the coaches at the school. Said, "Hey, did you offer this guy that it came through this coach?" And he said, "Well, that sounds legit. Yeah, if the OC offered him, that's legit." Then I said, "Does he have a 314 phone number?" He said, "No, that's fake."
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, the fact that someone would do it, and he doesn't know exactly who did it. I think he believes it's some former classmates. But the fact that someone would do that, and I will also tell you, I've seen
it's going through a lot of trouble.
This is probably like, oh my God, I mean,
to do all that, and that's why it's
complete punks.
Yeah, confusing people.
So, but they're very well thought out.
Yeah.
So
looks legit.
This is long gone are the days where a guy calls a kid out of the clear blue and says, "Hey, I want to offer you," right? And I'm like, okay, fine. But the other things I've seen, this might be what you're alluding to, like these kids are getting like messages from Eli Drinkowitz, and it specifically names them. It talks about what position they play, and then kind of like wanting them to be a Tiger. Well, the problem is these kids are younger, and he can't be sending them messages, right? They're not class of 2026; they're class of 2027 and 8. So it's right when you see that, you're like, well, he's not going to break rules to send this kid a message. So that's where you start to really realize there's a lot of frauds out there. And then, to me, they're probably trying to fish for information. They're probably trying to get the kid to buy in and give them things that they should not be giving them.
Yeah, right? It's really weird. I mean, they're doing it on the western side of they're just happening in Kansas City too. And people are using like Kansas State, Iowa State. I mean, it's really kind of sick if you're going to take the time to do that and to research it enough to make it seem legit, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? And I'm sure it's not just one person doing everything. It's a trend of people doing it. So my thought is you really need to do your homework. And I know a lot of people get excited and they want to post that they have an offer or this or that. You really need to research it and make sure it is who they say they are.
Yes.
And reach out, contact, make sure you do all the research. And even then you might want to hold back for a minute until you get all that done. And I don't believe that posting every offer that you get is a good thing necessarily.
There are some that draw people in. There's some
that keep people away.
Yep.
Yes. And that happens to people. And I've even seen some guys who have been like, they're like, what do you think? I'm like, wait. And they don't, for whatever reason, they don't wait. And then guess what? They're a big time athlete who has all the measurables, who tested out of the world, and things just kind of dry up, right? And not
they
to
start
down
getting
any
offers
program.
From people at that level.
Exactly.
It's a parity league.
You want to go out and you want to promote the fact that you're getting an offer from Lincoln University. Nothing wrong with that. That's great if you get that, right? Don't be surprised if every other school who's their competitor or who's on that level is going to come at you now.
Yep.
Where other schools are going to be like, oh, well, maybe he's not our guy.
Yep.
He doesn't have it. Even though he's that level, even though you may, do a 10-7 broad jump, run a 4.6 laser 40.
That is a major issue. And a lot of kids, again, that's what you and I are here doing. We talk about this stuff, nonstop. we deal with parents on a daily basis. I mean, I'm doing this 7 days a week. I know you're doing it 7 days a week. I mean,
I do it 8.
We live it, right? We live it,
Yeah.
right? And so the unfortunate truth is that, you know, we can only talk to so many people. I mean, I talk to so many people on a daily basis in our facility, and then we do the show because we want to get the word out. But there's certain ways to announce offers. There's certain ways to slow play offers.
When you should do it.
There's certain ways to start paring down your list of where you want to go. But I can tell you, like, if you're a young kid, we'll just use Ridge James as an example. He gets a high level, it's not Power 5, but high level first offer from UNLV.
Oh, it's yeah.
Right? That is a very top 25 team that's on the rise, got a high level coach in Barry Odom and a high level defensive coordinator, Michael Shearer.
He thought about it before he announced it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they did. They asked questions.
Oh, yeah.
They asked questions. They consulted.
Due diligence, yeah.
And so, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, that type of offer you can announce because it's like, okay, this dude's arrived and he's got people that are concerned about him and what it looks like, but he's also garnering interest from colleges, right? And let me tell you, people don't just offer to offer, right? Because yes, they do offer to offer because you get on a list, right? But they're not going to just arbitrarily put your name out there for you just because, just to be nice. I mean, you have to have tangible assets that they can project into the future and say, hey, at some point in time, we're going to really evaluate this guy to make sure. And then if they evaluate him and he's really where they want him to be, they're going to recruit the living heck out of you, right?
And if you don't develop it the way they thought, then they're just going to back off and fade into the woodwork.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
And so that with anything else, right? That's just, if you're hot, you're hot. If you're not, you're not. So that's why we encourage kids, when you get offers, you keep working. You don't stop. It's an invitation into the most elite club in the world for your particular age in the game you play. So getting an invitation to play college football at the Division I level or any level of football is an invitation to work harder, not less. You can't sit back and go, oh, I made it. You know, if your goal is to get an offer, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If your goal is to compete in college at the highest level you can compete at and let the chips fall where they may and lay it all out there, then that's what you should do. But if you're doing it for the social side of things, stop. Just post a fake offer, move on, be done. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're only going to make yourself look bad. You know, somebody who talking about was getting offers from smaller schools and talked to us about and I think they wouldn't mind me saying it, but somebody who got some small offers and asked me, and I'm sure they asked you, should I post this? And I believe we both said no.
I know you're going to say, yeah.
Talon Chandler, yeah.
Nope, don't offer.
Don't announce it. Yeah, don't. But man, he was so itching, you know, and Dad, man, they wanted to get things rolling. They wanted to get the ball rolling, and obviously everybody thinks if they're getting some interest from here, whether no matter what it is, whether it's jobs, whether it's girls, whatever. But there are good ones and there are bad ones, and so we told him, wait, keep your powder dry. And man, it worked out for him.
If your first offer is from an FBS school, it's usually pretty good that you can put it out there, right?
Right.
If it is, and this is no disrespect, right? Because you will hear, and you and I know this, and college coaches will openly admit it. They will be like, that dude's not our level, right? Like, okay, for instance, we'll use Robbie Preckle as a great example.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about him numerous times. I had numerous conversations with people at Lindenwood about him. And the number of FCS guys that could not believe that he did not have more FBS offers.
That's the thing.
They were shocked. Like, if he falls to our level, we are going to do everything in our power to get him because they can identify him as a guy that's a game changer, right? And so, Northwestern, obviously, they'd been on him. I mean, they sent people down to watch him at the camp. I mean, he did what he was supposed to do at the camp, right? And then he went up, I think,
he did
Iowa and
everywhere.
Nebraska and dominated and put some guys on their butts. Just did what he was supposed to do. Well, then when he gets that Big Ten offer that he's been waiting for because he knows he can compete at that level. Make no mistake, he's not the guy I was talking about that's doing it for the offer. He's doing it so he can compete at the highest level he can possibly compete at. And it's going to be fun to watch, right? And they got a good steal, right? They got a value play on that one. And so he's a kid that can play multiple positions, but he's a kid that they recruit him as an athlete. I think he's going to end up like an H-back, and get used.
That'd be perfect.
Really well there.
I got to tell you what, I mean, he's a little slimmed down, this camp season, and man, he could be a big receiver. He could be an H-back.
Right,
he could,
right.
He could gain the weight because he's, when he puts on the weight, it's muscle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He could grow into a tight end,
yeah.
H-back. I mean, you flip him over on defense. I like him as a linebacker.
Correct.
I always have. He could play with his hand. I mean, he's that dude. And you're talking about really, really good speed, power, strength. I mean, just everything.
And the other coaches that at the lower levels, a little bit lower than what was where he should have probably been, were chomping at the bit to get access to him, right? Because at the end of the day, of course they want those guys in their program. There's plenty of guys like him that fall to that level. I mean, there's a lot at the FCS, and then they end up going to the NFL. So a guy like him does a great job of staying prepared, and he kept a positive attitude. And it was just so relieving to see. He committed before he went to his pretty much before he went to his official, just because he knew he wanted to go there.
Oh yeah.
And there is something to be said for these colleges, and they know it, when they start showing a lot of like hardcore early interest on kids, even though they haven't pulled the trigger, but they're communicating. When it comes time and they can finally offer the offer, because sometimes they've overextended themselves and they can't offer yet because it's just bad business. Once they figure out they can do it, the odds of that kid committing are usually pretty good, because from a psychological perspective, like, he knows he wants to go there, right? They know they really want him, but now when the stars align, they can pull the trigger, offer, and then if that kid really wants to go there, he's going to do it. And so, I would not be shocked to see other schools try and sneak in. I would also not be shocked to see him just shut that down.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I mean, the first schools that show you the interest, that stick it out with you, even if they don't pull that offer, or pull the trigger on giving you an offer, that matters to kids. And every kid I talk to, it's relationships, and it means something to them when it's the early schools. I mean, man, there's been a rash of verbal commitments, and the Big Ten's doing pretty well. Tristan Abram, right? Another elite guy, like Robbie was, elite combine guy, committing to Indiana. He's another guy, another steal in my opinion. And he had some nice offers to choose from, but I mean, that was a school. He was Iowa picking up Lucas Allgaier from MICDS. And I'll put it out there right now. Lucas might be the best offensive line prospect in the 2025 class, because he's just that guy as a player and as an athlete. I remember Lindenwood last year, he was putting up crazy numbers. I mean, he's a guy who can run a 4.95, 40-yard laser or a 5 laser, broad jump 10 feet. I mean, just that kind of an athlete, and he can play on top of it.
He's gonna make somebody happy, right?
Iowa. He's already mad.
Pretty
happy.
He's gonna make. I mean, like, the position.
I mean, could you imagine?
The position coach is gonna be super happy.
And think about the tradition of Iowa offensive linemen, and especially in going to the NFL. I mean, that, or if you're a tight end,
that's the two positions,
man.
And that coaching staff knows what they're looking at.
Yes.
And he's he's a big athlete. He's strong, and I thought for a minute he was going to go to K-State. Go with his buddy Dylan Duff.
Yeah, Dylan was working him pretty hard. I don't know if you saw my interview with Dylan, but Dylan, he would definitely mention Lucas.
And the tough thing too is like, kind of bouncing around. You had talked about all the team camps and things we've seen this summer so far. The one thing is that it's really tough about our game is injuries, right? And so injuries occur, they happen. I mentioned, the tough thing is watching a lot of the team camps where it's supposed to be, thud. Most kids at that level do not understand tempo, pace, and thud. They don't get it, right? And so the number of kids that get rolled up on or tackled, and a lot of it's just innocent. Some of it's not, but a lot of it is.
Yep.
And well, you get guys that are playing varying degrees of the level of the game against each other. There's opportunity for. I'm going to say I watched video today from one of the team camps, and Nick Sprague was watching it with the quarterback and a rising junior, and they asked my opinion on a play, and there's certain things that you can see, watch, and like side adjustments, things like that get blown by high school kids constantly, right? And coaches probably talked to him about it. It just didn't happen. But we're watching the play, so there's like some debate between the defensive back guys and receivers about where the ball should have gone, right? So just basic football talk. Well, then at the end of the play, you have a high-level quarterback who just completed a dime, 50-yard ball, and a lineman after the play, offensive lineman, left guard dumps a player at the quarterback's feet, literally dumps him, throws him. If the quarterback would have been a foot further back, it blows his knee out.
Wow.
I mean, those are the things that you got to be so careful of, and you see it, and it happens in an instant, and it's so scary. But there's things as a coach, like you just assume someone's not going to do that.
Right.
The tough thing is,
did you get to see a coach reaction?
It was from a drone.
Oh, okay.
So I said to the quarterback, I said, you need to be very specific with that kid and the lineman. Like, there's no dumping anybody back by the quarterback, throwing them down.
Right.
Like, leg whipping, things like that. Like someone, getting tossed like that. Very dangerous. And that comes from, people not understanding the game they're playing. And then you might do that bullshit in a camp, and someone doesn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But, we always like to say, hey, and our coaches will step in and be the adults in the situation, say, no, you can't do that. I'm sure the football coaches do the same thing. But the tough thing is that's hard to do once that kid's laying there with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
Or a broken tibia, whatever it might be. I mean, it was two big boys, and he threw them, and it seems benign. I get it. Like, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But next time it might. So, that's my struggle with some of the tackle stuff. Another thing is I will say, like, I see a lot of the 7-on-7 stuff going on with helmets, which is, it's kind of one of those things where it's really hard to, everybody does it, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is I can tell you a story, and it will make sense as soon as you hear exactly what happened. Years ago, when the Rams ran their 7v7 tournament at the Smet, there was a debate whether or not to wear helmets before. The high school coaches voted to wear the helmets. So I understand the protection component. Well, the issue becomes they now have hard objects with metal and hard plastic on them, and the rest of the body is not protected. And a young man caught a helmet to his clavicle, broke his collarbone, and had an issue with that break, like hitting an artery. Kind of bad, right? So I remember talking to one of the moms. She was involved with her kid, and thank God everything ended up being okay. But they were talking about like suing, right? And they were like getting mad at the Rams because the Rams were the title sponsor. They weren't running the tournament. It wasn't them. They were the title sponsor. The high school association was putting it on. So it's one of those things. It seems benign until it's not, right? And you see these injuries occur, and that's the game we play. But like I alluded to earlier, there's things that go on in Texas in the spring that are spring ball, and then we look to them as like the gold standard. And Florida, they do it a little differently. But in the summer, they just do conditioning and do non-football related activities. Where here we go flat, we fly into it. And the craziest thing is they'll do this all summer, and then once the dead week hits and practice starts, what do they have to do then?
They have to
to do acclimation and go back in.
Yeah.
So point being is, back in the day in Texas, that's what used to happen. And something happened, a bad injury, the one you don't want to have happen to anybody on a football field, and it ended it. It stopped it all because we live in a litigious society. And they would say, what's the easiest thing someone's going to say, JP? Well, how are you guys hitting when you didn't have an acclimation period, right? Like, well, when's the acclimation period occur? Oh, in the fall when practice starts in August? Yeah. So the problem is my point going back to the original comment. It's a contact camp. It's not a full contact camp, correct? But unfortunately, the kids, it's very hard. You'll talk to NFL guys and they'll say the first time they really learned true non-padded tempo was when they got in the NFL, right? And they've learned how to do it in college to a degree, but then they master it in the NFL, right? And so the tough thing is that we're asking kids to do that, and I get it. You got to implement. You got to get your plays in. It's just tough when you start to see some of the injuries on things that you probably could have been avoided. Now, whether it's tackle or not, there's going to get kids that are going to get hurt in practice or whatever. I mean, it is what it is, right? So I just think it's one of those things that we bring it up only because it's happened other places, and you can kind of see, there are teams that are doing a lot of team related activities and not a ton of practice, right? If you talk to the kids, they're doing, a lot of 7-on-7 and a lot of team camp. Which how many days they get now? 20 days, or is it 20? A little over.
I think it varies. It's something like that.
It should have 20 days of like contact, if you will.
Yeah.
Right.
It depends.
Well, yeah, it does depend. And I don't know arbitrary who holds. I mean, it's just an honor system.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. To my knowledge.
Yeah. But you can see this. There's teams that definitely practice for 2 weeks, like for 4 days and 4 days, and then they have 2 weeks off. Right, where they're not off, but where they're doing their conditioning and speed and agility and lifting.
Weightlifting.
There's a lot of teams you can see that do that. So I would venture to guess. I would assume it's probably close to 95% are just above board, and you always are going to have someone that's pushing the envelope, or maybe not even know the rules. That could be a new coach. Someone screws up. I don't know, but yeah, I think it's helping raise the level of football if the kids are prepared to know what they're doing, right?
Well, right. And I will say that everything that I've been to, and I go to a lot, is just there's an abundance of caution. There's an abundance done to protect the kids and, stay up and avoid any kind of little, ticky-tack stuff or trying to get kids injured or, and so that's great to see. And every team that I've watched just really has their best interest because I mean, they don't want their star player having a knee blown out.
Absolutely.
Either. So, it's always just, somebody doing their own thing, whether it's either ego or what.
Or just being novice.
You're right. You're right. And if that's the case, then you really need to sit down and not be.
Well, I know it's tough because you got to get those guys experience and then, it is hard. So I know the coach has got to manage it, and not every kid that's on the football field has done a whole lot in the off season.
Right.
And they've done as best they can if they're doing a spring sport, maybe. But, it's hard for coaches managing, rosters of 100 kids. Right.
Right.
So
I will say though, I mean, just the level of head coaches that I'm seeing out there is just really, impressive. And I'm excited for what the season's going to hold.
Yeah.
Just the talent and the coaching and the coaches trying to prepare their team, is just really exciting for what is going to unfold this season. Yes. And I mean, there are guys who are just really building some good programs.
Oh yeah.
And teams that might have seemed like they were waning a little bit. I know Parkway West is a school that has some exciting athletes and some players that are there. Lift for Life is a team that should compete for a state championship.
Yes.
My gosh.
Yeah. I've seen them on film numerous times.
Oh man, he's Coach Woolfolk is doing a great job with that team.
I heard of another kid that's going.
Yeah.
Just the other day.
I know.
Yeah, they got some.
I was told we can't talk about that.
They have a lot of talent.
They do have a lot of talent.
So yeah, it's one of those things where like, what are they? 2A or 1A? They're small. It's pretty small, right?
They are. Is it 2 or 3? Because I know they play Herman. So yeah.
Oh, that'll be old against Dayton and
Henry
Alabach.
There's Herman's a team that's got some talent there.
Yes,
some college coaches. They got a nice linebacker who's just going to be a 6'2", 205-pound linebacker. Came to the combines and just, really had a nice showing. Was it Lindenwood had a really nice showing. So man, there's just so much talent.
And are you gonna get into any predictions? You gonna?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So I really hate to do that. I'm not a prediction guy. I don't like to make edits and put them out on social media. I know kids love that stuff.
There's, like, I guess there's a new, I forgot even what it's called, but there's a guy that's posted, top 5, and and a lot of the position groups are probably not bad. A lot of them are slam dunk guys, like the older guys, but like, oh God, you just said he's going to be Allgaier. I saw him listed as a defensive lineman when he's
he's an offensive tackle.
Yeah. So things like that are, honest mistakes. But I do think it is interesting. Like the quarterback list that was up there, I think all but one we train, like offensive linemen, all kids we train. Like you start going through those position groups, a lot of the DBs, a lot of the linebackers.
It's nothing new.
But the kids love that.
The kids love it. It's an attention getter, and people have figured out that, hey, if I do this, it's going to bring some attention on me. And guys love it. I mean, heck, there are guys on the national level have found their way into national recruits through the edit game. I'll make your edit for your commitment and just, and, give me the scoop. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a thing. Something real quick before we get out of here. I want to mention Quincy Bias announced his verbal commitment to Eastern Michigan defensive end from DeSmet. Looked good at the Eureka and Summit Camp, 6'2", 200 pounds. So congratulations to Quincy. Another, D1 defensive lineman, Titan Davis.
Max, is there. Great football. Great football.
Yeah, it's. I mean, they looked really good at Eureka and Summit. And Dylan Duff, looked really good once his offensive day 2 at Summit. His offensive line gelled, gave him the time necessary, and man, he was just
putting it out
dimes. Just it was amazing to see. And that's a kid, Dylan, who I think is going to surprise a lot of people. I know he's committed to Kansas State, but man, Coach Kleiman there just has a plan.
Oh yeah,
you got Avery Johnson, and then you got Dylan Duff in the way.
Real similar, style of play, very athletic, whippy arms.
And Dylan's just such a smart kid.
Yeah,
so heady and just media ready, which is what I kind of.
Yeah, that was a good interview.
Yeah,
really.
I'm like, dang, you're just gonna be a senior, but he's ready and he's prepared. And now that he's quit the basketball fantasy, I imagine that you helped him with that.
He's a damn good basketball player.
He is,
on top of it.
We had to tell him that he wasn't.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when I told his dad, I said, "Hey, he's a Division I quarterback."
Right.
But it's funny. He, I know that they would love to have him next year for basketball, but he's gonna be gone. I mean, he's going to school.
Right.
So
who else is a good basketball player at that school who loves the basketball? Is gentleman that you mentioned earlier today, Mr. Rich James.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he loves basketball.
He loves basketball too, but man,
that's the other thing. You think we do a lot for football in the summer? The basketball teams, it is unbelievable the number of games, the high school male and female basketball, what they play in the summer. They do the leagues against. I'm not talking AAU.
They do the leagues and the
high school. It's crazy.
Oh,
yeah, they really.
There's always some kind of tournament.
Yeah, really get after it. So, but yeah, that's. I mean, again, I don't do much with basketball. So, but I just hear kids talking about parents. It's like, oh yeah, we got
a million years I used to do that, but man, it's pretty sus.
Yeah,
I'll just leave it at that.
Different,
very different, and hopefully, you hope. And I know we've talked about like 7-on-7. You don't hope that doesn't creep into that.
Yeah,
but as we talked about with the money,
I have a feeling it is.
We've talked about the money aspect of the game, and so with that sort of stuff happens.
Hey, you're starting to do the NIL stuff too, like, and I always thought about this. So like say Mizzou's a Nike school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so like Adidas is going to go after kids, right? They're starting to sponsor kids in college. So what happens when you're an Adidas athlete at a Nike school, just like in the NFL, right? Like, right. So like there's some play in that, right? Because the kid gets to choose what he wants to wear, I would assume. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, in the NFL, they black it out or whatever, and then they tape over it. And, so they make it look a certain way. But in college, you start to see these big schools like gaining access to the star player
Oh yeah.
Or the big shoe companies gaining access. I always wondered when that was going to happen, but I know Adidas is now sponsoring some, 7, 8, 9, 10 popular high school rising seniors, which should be really interesting to see how that shakes out.
That's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you got a chance to see all of our beautiful websites scrolling at the bottom of the screen right there.
Yeah.
Pro Joe, man. That's why he's the pro. That's why he's Pro Joe. Look at that. That's
on
beautiful.
Command.
On command. He's on it, man.
Yep.
He makes everything roll, everything sound good, look good, and now we're just, the graphics. Speaking of graphics, is just killer. Yep. But that does it, man. Another fastest hour of football talk on the planet. Football 360 show. More beautiful graphics. How to reach us, your socials. Go ahead, and even though they're on the screen, it'll be easy for you to say.
On X, Elite Football, and Instagram, Elite Football Academy, and then online, elitefootball.net.
Yeah, I'm having trouble seeing mine, but mine is JP Rock MO on X and JP Rock Scout U on the gram. We've enjoyed ourselves as always. Everybody stay safe out there. The roads are a little wet. The heat is going to be back with us, I do believe, again tomorrow. Everybody stay safe, hydrate, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.